Hi, Pankhurst class. This is your comprehension lesson for today. What I've done is in the link that you would have been emailed, you have got a copy of the comprehension sheet, so you can use that to help you with today's work. So we're going to only look at the text today, and then tomorrow's lesson we're going to have a look at the questions. I'm just going to be looking at the text. I'm going to read it with you now. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And the text looks like this. So hopefully you've got a copy of this, or if you don't, you can just read it off the screen. That's absolutely fine. It's going to make the screen a little bit larger for you. Okay, so the text is called The Spirit of Place, and it's by Richard Brown. Now it says, a poem for 4 voices. Here is just the beginning of a horror story. Where will it end? It's a poem to start with. Looking at it then, I've got 4 sections, which probably represent the 4 voices. In a poem, can you remember what a section of writing is called? So when we do our writing a story, for example, we have paragraphs. In a poem, what are they called? Can you remember? Okay, they're called verses or stanzas. So well done if you remembered that. They're called verses or stanzas. So verses, verses. Good, and stanzas, stanzas. Perfect. So there's 4 verses in our poem, and they represent the poem for 4 voices, which it says at the top. And I'm going to go through each one, and each one is numbered, so you can follow the line. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down. Okay. I'm going to read it to you, and then the second time I'm going to read it to you, I'm going to ask you to write down something for me. Just listen carefully for now. There was a sea, a blue sea, a secret blue sea, and in this sea there was an island, a spiky island, a spiky green island. And in this island there was a valley, a deep valley, a hot deep valley. And in this valley there was a tree, a vast tree, a vast ancient tree. And in the roots of this tree there was an egg, a historic egg, a prehistoric egg. And in this egg, there was a creature, a live creature, a creature so wild, so full of energy. The old tree trembled. And in a hurricane, a tearing hurricane, a fierce tearing hurricane, that tree cracked to the roots. And out of those roots, those shattered roots laid bare in the howl, climbed the creature, the wild creature, so full of energy, so full of destruction, it shrieked for escape. There was a sea, a blue sea, a boiling blue sea, and in this sea there was an island, a spiky island, an island in turmoil. It was ready to plunge into the sea, the boiling sea, and swim, swim, swim towards us all. It's quite an interesting poem. So over here, we've got the sea, it's a blue sea, it's on a green island, it's quite calm. Then we've got something to do with about a tree and an egg and a creature. Then up here, we all of a sudden get to a hurricane, which I'm going to come on to in a moment. And suddenly things become a bit more scary. There's a fierce tearing hurricane. Roots are cracked. There's destruction, there's shrieking for escape. So I'm going to read it again. This time, any words that you don't know what they mean, I'd like you to write down. So any words you're not sure what they mean, write them down on your piece of paper. There was a sea, a blue sea, a secret blue sea. And in this sea, there was an island, a spiky green island. And in this island, there was a valley, a deep valley, a hot deep valley. And in this valley, there was a tree, a vast ancient tree. And in the roots of this tree, there was an egg, a historic egg, a prehistoric egg. And in this egg, there was a creature, a live creature, a creature so wild, so full of energy, the old tree trembled. And in a hurricane, a tearing hurricane, a fierce tearing hurricane, that tree cracked to the roots. And out of those roots, those shattered roots laid bare in the howl, climbed the creature, the wild creature. So full of energy, so full of destruction, it shrieked for escape. There was a sea, a blue sea, a boiling blue sea. And in this sea there was an island, a spiky island, an island in turmoil. It was ready to plunge into the sea, the boiling sea, and swim, swim, swim towards us all. So I'd like you to write down any words that you weren't sure of what they meant. And if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, if you pause the video now and write them down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the meanings of the words I think some of you might find a bit tricky. And that's what we're going to focus on today, is just the vocab. So hopefully you've had a chance to do that. And I'm going to move on to our next slide. If you haven't, just pause it and have a look at it now. Okay, so vast. Now in our poem, it says, there was a tree, a vast ancient tree. Now vast means like a large open, it's not often, it means space. So for example, here I've got a picture of a desert and it's a vast open space. So it goes on and on and on, and there isn't really much there, and it's really huge open space. Now this poem is using the word vast for a vast tree, a vast ancient tree. So vast for a tree would probably mean it's really large, maybe some bare branches, maybe there aren't many leaves, but the branches sort of reach out in different directions. So I would describe that for a vast tree. So if you have that one, that's what it means. A valley. So a valley is when you have sort of like this, you've got some mountains or some hills, and it's where they make a V shape, and then there's like this one's got a stream or a river going through it, or it might have a path going through it, and it's the gap, the flat bit between the two hills or mountains, and it makes a V shape, so it's a valley. So that is what the valley is. So in the poem, it uses the word valley here. There was a valley, a deep valley, a hot, deep valley. So if it's a deep valley, it means the hills are steeper and they'll be taller. Okay, so if it's deep, it means the mountains or the hills on either side will be deeper. And if it's a hot valley, maybe it's like a valley like in the desert or in a hotter country. And I've also got some words here that you might have found a bit tricky. Spiky, ancient, destruction, and turmoil and shattered. Spiky is a bit like when you have spiky hair, people might spike their hair up. That is spiky when it goes to a point. Ancient means very old. So like the ancient Egyptians, I know we've looked at before. Destruction, if something is destructive or destruction, is sort of completely destroyed. There's destruction, is being destroyed. So for example, if a house is being knocked down, there's the destruction is all being knocked over. Turmoil sort of means a similar thing as destruction. If there is turmoil, there could be, if someone is in a state of turmoil, they might be really confused, they might be not really knowing what's going on. If there is turmoil in a place, again, it means that things are sort of not really, there's a lot of destruction there, a lot of damage. There could be something happening that's causing some issues in the place, which in this poem is the hurricane. And shattered, if you have something like shattered glass, it's where it's broken into like lots of different pieces. That's what shattered means. So I'm going to ask you to do something for me with those words in a moment. I'm just going to show you a little video of a hurricane, and I'm going to talk you through a few more of the words just so that you understand. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm going to share, hopefully, another screen with you if I can find it on my screen, and then we'll be able to do it that way. So let's have a look. Okay, so I put this on mute because I don't think you need to have a look, you don't need to listen to it, but this is an example of a hurricane. So you've got really strong winds that will be pushing all the water over. It will just knock down some trees. It's when it's really, really windy. So hurricane like this has got really strong winds. I think it's when they're over 74 miles an hour, and they can knock things over, pull trees out, knock power lines down, so they might not have any electricity. Water can be pushed over. And this happens in some countries, for example, America, they have quite a lot of hurricanes. So they have loads and loads of hurricanes like that. And that's what this poem is about. It's about sort of a build-up of a hurricane happening on an island. And then suddenly something that's quite calm turns into turmoil. Something like that happens. So I'm going to go back, now that you've pictured it, what it looks like. I'm going to now go back to our poem. Okay. So I'm going to go through the poem again in a little bit more information, explain the lines if you're not sure, and then I'm going to ask you to write some sentences for me. So it says a poem for 4 voices because you can see that as the poem goes on, it turns into a bit of like a horror with a hurricane, and then something else happens near the end. So it's calm. There was a sea, a blue sea. It's all quite calm. A spiky island. So maybe if it's spiky, there's lots of mountains and hills which create the valleys. It's a hot island, we know that. There's a tree. There's a vast tree. It's an old tree because it's ancient. So all the branches might be reaching out and it's quite old and it's going to have lots of roots that are going to be going really deep and really far out because it's an old, old tree. And in the roots of this tree, there's an egg, a historic egg, a prehistoric egg, so a really old egg. And in the egg, there's a creature, a live creature. So all of a sudden, this calm blue sea and the island, suddenly something's changing. There's a creature from an old egg. And the creature is wild, a creature so wild, so full of energy, the old tree trembled. So if you imagine the egg is in the roots and it's starting to move because it's so full of energy, but moving so much that the whole tree is starting to tremble. Tremble means to shake. And in a hurricane, a tearing hurricane, a fierce tearing hurricane, that tree cracked. So a bit like we just saw with the wind blowing the trees, cracked to the roots. So because the tree has cracked at the roots and the roots have shattered, gone into lots of pieces, the roots lay bare, the creature was able to climb out. The wild creature, so full of energy, so full of destruction, so it's about to destroy things. And it shrieked. So shrieking is like a really high-pitched scream for escape. So that's what just happened. We've now got a creature that was able to be trapped into the tree, has now managed to escape. There was a sea, a blue sea, a boiling blue sea. And in this sea, there was an island, a spiky island. But now this island is in turmoil because it's had the hurricane, the trees have fallen over, and there's this wild creature has escaped. It was ready to plunge. So plunge means if it's like a big force going down. So plunge into the sea, the boiling sea, and swim, swim, swim towards us all. So it's talking about the creature that's managed to escape. It's about to go into the sea and swim away from the island towards us. So it's trying to create that sort of suspense of what's going to happen. Okay, I hope that you understand that poem. What I'd like you to do, just for today, is you have got 5 words: spiky, ancient, destruction, turmoil, and shattered. And all I want you to do today is I want you to write me a sentence using those words. For example, I might say, Tommy's hair on Tuesday was brown and spiky. Full stop. So you're going to use those 5 words, and I want you to write a sentence for each one. If you think that's easy, Miss Lewis, I'd like you to add some adjectives. For example, there I use and, which is a connective, and then I also use brown and spiky. So I'd like you to try and use that. And if you think that's easy, can you then add some brackets? For example, I might say, the ancient pot from Egypt was yellow and brown. And I might put in brackets, it used to be used to collect some of the ancient equipment that was buried with the mummies, close brackets. So you're going to use in brackets to add the extra information. So I'd like you to write down 5 sentences, see if you can use some adjectives. If you can use brackets as well, don't forget your capitalizers and full stops, and write that onto pieces of paper. Then if you upload it onto Tapestry, I will have a look at it as soon as you have been able to do that. Then tomorrow we're going to work through the questions for that text. Well done today. I know it's tough being back at home, but it's not for too long, hopefully, and we'll be able to see you at the end of next week. Have a good rest of your day, And you have also got Vipers coming on here later on. So you've got some more reading to do. And you've also got PE, got a Joe Wicks YouTube video to watch, and a computing. The computing is only a short one today. So have a look at those for me, and I will see you tomorrow in our live session in the morning. Bye, Pankhurst class.